My sister destroyed my life with a single accusation. Now I have proof that she was the one guilty all along, and the only question is, what will I do next? I've never written anything like this before, but there's something about putting the truth out in the open, even anonymously, that makes the weight feel a little lighter. I was 26 when my sister ruined my life. Now I'm 33, and for the first time since it happened, I'm the one holding the cards. Let me start from the beginning. Her name's Emily. She's 2 years older than me, always had a way of turning heads and spinning stories. Growing up, she was the golden child. Straight A's, cheer squad, every teacher's favorite. I was more the background noise, quiet, average, liked by a few, invisible to most. That's not me fishing for sympathy, it's just how it was. We were close enough as kids. Fought like siblings do, but there was still a bond. That started to fade when she got older, and completely snapped the year she met Nate. Nate was her college boyfriend, then husband. The kind of guy you wouldn't expect her to pick. Quiet. Kind. A little awkward, but in a way that made you want to protect him. When they got married, I remember thinking, maybe Emily's changed. Maybe she was tired of the spotlight, the games, and just wanted something real. Spoiler, she hadn't. Things went south 4 years into their marriage. Out of nowhere, she called me crying, saying Nate had cheated. She said he'd been texting some girl named Marissa, someone he met through me. I blinked at the phone like I'd just been punched. Marissa was a friend of mine from work. We'd all gone out for drinks once, me, Marissa, Emily, and Nate. It was a one-time thing. There was no flirting, no weird vibes. I even asked Marissa afterward if she thought Nate was attractive and she said, "Nah, he seems too soft for me." But Emily was insistent. Said she found texts, pictures. She never showed me. Just kept saying, "How could you do this to me?" She told our parents I introduced her husband to a side piece. That I knew and kept it from her. That I betrayed her. And they believed her. No questions. No chance to explain. My mom told me she was disgusted. My dad just shook his head and said I had to leave the house, said it wasn't safe for Emily's mental health to have me around. I wasn't even living with them full time. I'd moved back temporarily after getting laid off, trying to get my feet under me. 1 month turned into 3. And then suddenly, I was gone. No job. No home. No support. Emily stayed married to Nate. That always felt strange to me. She kept saying she forgave him, for the kid's sake, she said. But I knew something was off. I moved across the state and took the first job I could find, loading trucks at night. Spent months living out of a shitty studio apartment with no heat and a busted lock on the front door. Ate cheap takeout, skipped meals when rent was due. I lost touch with almost everyone. But I kept going. I got another job. Then another. Started freelancing on the side. 2 years later, I had my own business. Nothing flashy, but it paid the bills. I even bought a small house, quiet neighborhood, good people, lots of trees. But I never forgot. The silence from my parents. The betrayal from Emily. That helpless feeling of being framed for something I didn't do. It stayed with me like a stone in my gut. Then, 6 weeks ago, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Nate. He asked if we could talk. Said he had something to show me. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our towns. He looked older, thinner, too. Said the marriage was finally over. That she'd left him for someone she met on a wellness retreat. Some guru guy in Oregon who talked about chakras and soul alignment or some crap. Then he pulled out his phone. Screenshots. Text messages. Years worth of Emily cheating. Not just recently, but since year 2 of their marriage. Different names, different cities. Sometimes while Nate was home with the kids. Sometimes while she was at girls' weekends or business conferences that never really happened. And the kicker? That night she called me, blaming me for her husband's infidelity. She'd just gotten caught herself. Nate had found emails between her and one of her co-workers. She flipped it. Reversed the blame. Said Nate had been unfaithful, and dragged me into it to make it stick. He told me he believed her for years. But now, seeing the full picture, he said, "I'm sorry. I should have known." I didn't say much. Just stared at the table while my coffee went cold. Later that night, I sat on my porch with a glass of whiskey and opened up an old photo album my mom had made when we were kids. There was a picture of Emily and me in matching Christmas pajamas. I wanted to rip it out. But I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and made a few calls. It was time they knew the truth. I didn't rush it. After I met with Nate and got the proof, I didn't call my parents that night. I sat with it. Let the anger breathe a little. I've learned the hard way, acting in the heat of it doesn't get you anywhere but deeper in the pit. So I waited. 3 days. On the 4th, I called my dad. He answered like nothing ever happened. "Hey, son," he said. Like we'd just spoken last week. Like they didn't toss me out like garbage 7 years ago. I told him I had something important to talk about. "It's about Emily," I said. "And Nate." He got quiet. Then said, "What now?" I said I'd rather explain in person. That I wanted both him and Mom there. I didn't tell him what it was about. Let them wonder. They gave me a time. Saturday, 3 p.m. Their place. I hadn't been back there in years. Not since the night they told me to pack up and leave. They said they needed to protect the family. What they meant was, they needed to protect the illusion. The perfect daughter, the loyal husband, the scapegoat brother. When I pulled up, the front yard looked the same. Same wind chimes, same cracked birdbath, same plastic flowerpots faded from the sun. The kind of house that looks fine from a distance, but up close, the paint's peeling and the porch sags just a little. My mom answered the door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Her face stiffened when she saw me. "Come in," she said, like I was a stranger selling insurance. They were already seated when I stepped into the living room. I didn't sit right away. Just looked around. Same couch. Same family photos. Except, my face wasn't in any of them anymore. I got to the point. "I spoke to Nate," I said. My dad shifted in his seat. "Why?" "He reached out," I said. "Wanted to tell me the truth about what happened back then." Mom crossed her arms. "That's old news." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "What's old is the lie. This is new." I set the phone on the coffee table and played the audio. Nate's voice. Calm, steady. The story of the affair. The texts. The dates. The timeline. Then the screenshots. I showed them everything. Nate had compiled it like he was trying to prove it in court. He probably was, custody battle pending. I watched their faces shift as the truth sank in. My dad kept blinking, like maybe if he didn't look directly at it, it wouldn't be real. My mom started shaking her head before I even finished. "No. That's not," she told us. "She lied," I cut in. "And you believed her. You threw me out. You never even asked me if it was true." Mom's voice broke a little. "We didn't know. We thought." "No," I said again, firmer this time. "You didn't want to know. You just needed someone to blame. And I was easy." There was a long silence after that. You could hear the clock ticking above the fireplace. My dad cleared his throat. "What do you want from us?" I laughed. Cold and flat. "Nothing. I'm not here for an apology. I'm not here to fix anything. Mom looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. Then why come at all? I leaned forward. So you'd know. So when she comes crawling back with her stories, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember how easily you believed the lie. And how fast you threw away your son. Dad stared at the floor. Mom whispered something, but I didn't catch it. I stood. Slipped the phone back into my pocket. Emily's gone. Ran off with some yoga guru in Oregon. Nate's filing for divorce. You won't hear it from her, but the truth's out now. Do what you want with it. I turned to go. Wait, Mom said, rising to her feet. We made a mistake. We were trying to protect her. You protected a lie, I said, not turning around. You let me rot while you did it. Dad finally spoke. We didn't know what to do. We just thought she was telling the truth. You always do. I left without another word. Got in my truck. Sat there for a minute. They didn't follow me out. It took 3 days for the first message to come through. It was my mom. Just a short one. I've been thinking about everything. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a while. Left it unread. By the 5th day, she tried again. Then my dad. Then both of them, together. We want to make this right. You'll always be our son. Please, don't shut us out. Funny how fast people remember they love you once they realize they were wrong. I let it sit. They wanted a reaction, but I'd spent years learning how not to give one. They tried calling next. I didn't block them. Just let the calls ring out. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been back then. This was quieter. Heavier. Like standing on the other side of a burned bridge, looking back at the charred wood and wondering why you ever thought it would hold your weight. Then one morning, a cousin of mine reached out. Told me Emily had shown up at our parents' house after her Soul Quest retreat went belly up. Apparently, the guru had moved on, to a newer, younger disciple, and left her high and dry. She came crawling back. And she got the door slammed in her face. That's what my cousin said. That for the first time, my parents didn't bend for her. My mom even told her, "You did this to yourself." I won't lie, reading that. It felt good. Maybe not noble. Maybe not kind. But it felt right. I asked my cousin, "Why are you telling me this?" He paused. Then typed. "Thought you should know. You were never the problem." I didn't respond. But it stayed with me. I'd spent so long believing I was the stain on the family photo. The one they'd rather crop out. Turns out I was just the one who got in the way of their favorite story. A week later, my dad showed up at my door. No call. No warning. Just standing on the porch like we were picking up where we left off. I opened the door, but not all the way. He looked older. Hair thinner, eyes sunken. Like the truth had knocked the wind out of him and never gave it back. He said, "I just want to talk." I didn't move. "Please," he said. "We didn't know what we were doing. We messed up. Your mother's been a wreck." I said, "You didn't come find me when I was living out of my car." He looked down. "We didn't know how bad it got. You didn't ask." He nodded. Took a deep breath. "We want to make it right. However we can." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "I'm not looking for a family anymore. I already built a life without one." I could see it hit him. "You don't mean that." "I mean it." He asked if he could come in. I told him no. He asked if he could call. I said I won't block him, but don't expect an answer. He stood there a little longer. Then said something that stuck with me. "You're a hard man now." I nodded. Had to be. He left without another word. That night I sat out on my back deck with a drink in hand, watching the last light fade out of the sky. Emily's lie had taken everything from me once. But the truth? The truth gave me back something I hadn't had in years: control. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need forgiveness. I just needed the truth out in the open. And now it was. They'd thrown me away once. Now they'd thrown her away too. And me? I didn't need to go back. Not anymore. It was a Wednesday. Middle of the week, middle of the day. I'd just come in from the shop, wiping grease off my hands, when I saw her name on my phone. Emily. I hadn't seen it in years. Not since the day she stood in my parents' kitchen crying crocodile tears, swearing up and down her husband had betrayed her. That I'd helped him do it. That I'd ruined her life. Back then, I'd called her my sister. Now? She was just a ghost with a familiar voice. The text was short. Can we talk? Please. I didn't respond. She waited a few hours. Then sent another. I know I hurt you. I need to explain. Still nothing from me. That evening, she sent a third. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I can't live with myself if I don't try. I don't know what possessed me to answer. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to see what kind of mask she'd wear this time. Maybe I just wanted to hear the lie from her lips. So I said, tomorrow. 6 p.m., public place. I chose a small cafe on the edge of town. Quiet, open, neutral ground. I didn't want her in my house. Hell, I didn't even want her near my truck. She was already there when I arrived. Sitting at a corner table, looking down at her hands like a child waiting for a scolding. Her hair was different. She wore less makeup. But the eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, hadn't changed a bit. She looked up and smiled. Thanks for coming. I didn't answer. Just sat down. She took a breath. I know I was wrong. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. I was in a bad place back then, she said. I felt like everything was falling apart. Nate wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I was scared. I waited. Nothing about me. Nothing about what she did to me. So I said, why lie about me? She hesitated. That one caught her. I panicked, she said. When Nate found out about everything, I thought I could fix it if I shifted the story. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that. You told them I was the reason he cheated. She looked down. I know. You said I introduced him to her. Said I helped him betray you. I know. You let them throw me out. That one made her flinch. I was angry, she whispered. I felt betrayed. And you've always had this way of making people believe you. I almost laughed. I lost everything, I said. And you watched it happen. She finally looked up. I'm sorry. But it didn't land. It wasn't real. It was the kind of sorry you say when the truth corners you, not when it weighs on your soul. I leaned back. So what do you want? Her lip trembled, but there was no tear. I just want my brother back. No, I said. You want your image back. You want the guy who used to cover for you. Who used to believe in you. That's not fair, she whispered. What you did wasn't fair. And don't talk to me about fairness when you left me on the street with nothing. She bit her lip, looked away. People in the cafe were starting to glance over. You got caught, I said. That's all this is. If Nate hadn't saved those texts, you'd still be spinning the story. She didn't argue. I stood up. You're not my sister anymore. You're just a name in my past. She reached out, almost like she wanted to grab my hand, but stopped. Please, she said. Just tell them I tried. I looked her dead in the eye. I will. I'll tell them you tried. Just like I tried 7 years ago to get someone, anyone, to listen. Then I walked out. I didn't tell anyone what happened at that cafe. Didn't need to. Word travels on its own in families like mine. A week later, I got a message from my Aunt Liz. Heard Emily reached out. Brave of you to meet her. I hadn't spoken to Aunt Liz in years. She was my mom's older sister. Used to sneak me candy when I was a kid. Always had a sharp tongue and zero patience for bullshit. We talked for half an hour. She didn't ask for details. Didn't dig. Just said, "You handled yourself better than I would've." Turns out, she never liked Emily much. Neither did a few of the cousins. One of them told me, "I always figured something was off. Emily cried a little too fast when she got caught." It's funny how the silence starts to break once the golden girl loses her shine. There were others, too. A second cousin who messaged me just to say, "I'm sorry I didn't reach out back then. I didn't know what to believe, and I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't hold it against him." That's what families do when someone gets marked, they close ranks. And back then, I was easy to cut off. No job, no house, no partner. Just a guy floating around, trying not to drown. But now? Now I had roots. And a voice. And the truth. And for the first time in a long time, people started listening. My uncle even called me. Asked if I'd come to the next family dinner. Said he wanted to set the record straight. I said I'd think about it. Truth is, I wasn't sure I wanted back in. Not all the way. But I showed up. Just to see. The dinner was at my cousin Jake's house. Big backyard. Long table. Maybe 15 people. Not a massive reunion, just the ones who'd heard enough to want to know more. Emily wasn't invited. My parents weren't either. When I walked in, a few heads turned. Some folk stood up. Jake shook my hand like I'd come home from a war. There was food, music, kids running around. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then Aunt Liz raised her glass. To the man who kept his mouth shut when he was blamed, and opened it when it counted. Everyone raised theirs with her. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Took a sip of my drink and sat down. Later that night, I ended up around the fire pit with a few of the guys. My cousin Derek asked what I was going to do next. About my parents. About Emily. I shrugged. "Nothing," I said. "I've already got what I need. They know the truth. That's enough." "But you're not going to let them back in, right?" he asked. I looked into the fire. Watched it crackle and pop. "I don't need to punish them," I said. "I just don't need them anymore." He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. That's the thing people don't always understand about justice. Sometimes it's not about revenge. Sometimes it's just about knowing you don't have to carry the weight anymore." It came in the mail. No warning. No return address. Just a plain white envelope with my name written in cursive I hadn't seen in years. My mother's handwriting. I knew it instantly. She used to write our names on birthday cards in the same swooping, perfect penmanship. The kind that came from Catholic school nuns and being the oldest of 7. I sat at the kitchen table staring at it. 6 hours. That's how long I left it there. Didn't touch it. Didn't move it. Just drank coffee, did some paperwork, took a walk around the block, and came back to find it still sitting there like a landmine on the linoleum. When I finally opened it, I did it slow. Inside was a folded piece of yellow stationery and a photo. One of the old ones, me and Emily on the front porch, barefoot, holding popsicles, grinning like the world hadn't touched us yet. That picture must have been tucked away in her stash somewhere. She chose it for a reason. I wasn't sure if that reason was love or guilt. The letter was 5 paragraphs. Neat. Controlled. Just like her. It started with, "I don't expect you to forgive me. Then came the soft tap dance of apologies. She said they were wrong. That they acted too quickly. That they let fear dictate their actions. That believing Emily was easier than believing their son could be innocent. She wrote that she cried when Nate showed them the evidence. That she couldn't sleep afterward. That my father had been silent for 2 whole days, barely spoke a word. Then she wrote something I didn't expect. We didn't protect you. And part of me thinks we didn't want to. You reminded us of the ways we failed. That line hit harder than the rest. She didn't explain it. Didn't unpack it. Just left it there like a confession she wasn't sure she wanted absolved. The last paragraph asked if I would ever come back. Not for holidays. Not for birthdays. Just, come back. Sit at the table. Talk. You were always the one who saw through everything, she wrote. Maybe that's why we pushed you out. It's easier to believe the lie than face the mirror. I put the letter down. Went outside. Sat on the steps. Let the evening air settle around me like an old coat I hadn't worn in years. The picture lay on the table inside. That summer, we were maybe 7 and 9. Back when lies hadn't taken root yet. Back when we thought love was unshakable. But love built on conditions is just a deal waiting to collapse. They loved me as long as I played the role. The moment I didn't, when I stood still and let the accusations hit me instead of groveling or running, they called it guilt. I folded the letter. Put it back in the envelope. Didn't throw it out. Didn't answer either. Some wounds don't need stitches. They need air. It was a Saturday. Late afternoon. Sun starting to dip low, painting everything gold like it was trying to make the world look better than it really was. I was in the garage, working on an old carburetor, when I heard the knock. Not a doorbell. A knock. Slow. 3 taps. Hesitant. I wiped my hands, walked out, and there he was. My father. Standing on my porch like a man who didn't know if he'd be welcome. He looked smaller than I remembered. Same coat, same boots. But something in his face had changed. Less fire. More weight. I opened the door, but didn't say a word. He nodded once. Can I come in? I let him. Not because I forgave him. Not because I needed anything. But because the time for silence had passed. What needed to be said had been building for too long. He sat on the couch like it might break under him. I stayed standing. For a while, neither of us said a word. The room ticked with the sound of the wall clock, same pace as always. Steady. Unchanging. Finally, he spoke. We failed you. I said nothing. We chose to believe what was easy. What didn't ask anything of us. Still, I said nothing. He looked up, eyes glassy but dry. Your mother sent you that letter. Did you read it? I did. He nodded. She meant every word. She meant the words now. Not when it mattered. That one hit him. I saw it in the way his jaw clenched. But he didn't argue. I've spent a lot of nights thinking about what I'd say if I saw you again, he said. But none of it matters if you won't hear it. I'm listening, I said. But don't mistake that for trust. He nodded again. Slower this time. You were right, he said. About everything. About Emily. About us. He paused, rubbed his hands together. I thought I was protecting your sister. But I was protecting myself. I didn't want to believe she could do what she did. And I didn't want to admit that I had it in me to abandon my own son. The word hung in the air. Abandon. I let it sit. Let him hear how it sounded in his own voice. You didn't even ask me, I said. You just assumed I was guilty. Threw me out like I was some stranger who wandered into your house and broke something. I know, he said. I see it now. And all those years, no calls, no visits. You knew where I was. He nodded, shame in his posture. I told myself you didn't want to hear from us. That maybe it was better to leave you alone. But the truth is, I was afraid of what you'd say. Afraid of what it would show me about the kind of father I really was. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. I'm not asking you to forgive me today. Hell, I don't know if I deserve it ever. But I needed to look you in the eye and say I'm sorry. I needed to tell you that I remember the boy I raised, and that I missed the man he became without me. That one landed. Because part of me, deep down in the marrow, had waited to hear those words for years. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I sat down across from him. Let the silence settle again. You weren't there when I needed a father, I said. Now that I've learned to live without one, you show up. I know, he said quietly. I don't need anything from you. Not now. Not ever. But I'll give you this, you said what you came to say. You did what most people never do. You owned it. He looked up, something like gratitude in his face. But I held up a hand. That doesn't mean the slate's clean. It just means I heard you. He nodded. Stood up. I walked him to the door. He stopped just before stepping out. If you ever change your mind, about family, I'll be here. I looked him in the eye. Family's not blood. It's who stays. He nodded again. Then he was gone. I didn't think she'd show up there. My work's not exactly a secret, but it's not the kind of place you drop by unless you've got a reason. Industrial Park, back end of town. The kind of building with numbers spray painted on the side, not letters in gold. But there she was. Emily. In the lobby. Wearing that same self-righteous expression she used to wear when she lied to our parents and got away with it. Except this time, there was something underneath it. Something frayed. The receptionist flagged me from down the hall. She says she's your sister. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because of how foreign the word sounded now. I walked out, slow and steady. Emily stood up when she saw me. Smiled. Like none of it had happened. Like we were still kids catching frogs behind the shed. Hey, she said softly. I didn't answer. Can we talk? I looked around. A couple co-workers were watching from down the corridor. I motioned to the back lot. We stepped outside into the heat. The sky was gray with summer haze, the smell of diesel and sweat hanging in the air. What do you want, Emily? She winced at the name. Maybe she expected, sis. Maybe she expected some warmth. She got none. I know you probably hate me, she said. But I didn't know where else to go. I raised an eyebrow. Your guru kick you out? She didn't smile. I lost everything. Did you, now? She nodded. Nate's got full custody. I'm staying with a friend but it's not permanent. I thought if we could talk, maybe. Stop, I said. She blinked. You're not here to make peace, I said. You're here because you ran out of people to lie to. Her voice cracked. That's not true. You want me to tell you it's okay. You want me to say we're family, that the past doesn't matter. But you know what, Em? The past is the only honest thing about you. She looked like she'd been slapped. I lied, she said. I know that. I told them Nate cheated when I was the one doing it. I blamed you. I broke everything. But I'm trying to make it right. You didn't come to make it right, I said. You came because you're alone. And you think I'll be the safety net again. She looked at me, tears finally forming. But I didn't budge. You had a choice, I said. You made it. Over and over. I lived in my truck for a year because of you. I begged for jobs. Ate canned soup in a parking lot. You knew. And you didn't care. She covered her mouth. Shook her head. I was messed up. We were all messed up. But not all of us weaponized it. Silence. The sun beat down, hot and relentless. The lot smelled like oil and pavement. She stood there, unraveling. But I stayed calm. Grounded. You want forgiveness? I said. Start with yourself. But don't come to me for it. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. I'm done carrying your shame, I said. You can keep it. Then I turned and walked away. She didn't follow. Didn't scream. Didn't cry out. She just stood there, shoulders trembling, as the door closed behind me. His name's Marcus. Third cousin, maybe fourth. One of those family tree branches that always felt more like a rumor than a relative. He was quiet at reunions, polite but forgettable. Used to follow Emily around like a puppy when we were kids. She'd call him Marky, and he'd carry her books. He messaged me on Facebook. No, hey, no, long time, no see. Just. Are you proud of what you did? At first I ignored it. Thought maybe it was bait. Maybe Emily was behind it, using someone else to get one last jab in. But he followed up 2 days later. I'm not saying she didn't deserve what came her way. But you took her down hard. You really think that was justice? Or just payback dressed up to look noble? I sat with that one. Longer than I wanted to admit. It wasn't anger I felt. Not guilt either. Just stillness. Like standing in a room after a fight and realizing the house isn't shaking anymore. So I wrote back. She destroyed my life. Lied to everyone. Kicked me out of the only home I had. I didn't swing first. I just stopped ducking. He read it. Never replied. But his question stuck. Am I proud of what I did? If what I did means surviving, then yeah. I'm proud of that. If it means telling the truth? Absolutely. If it means watching her crumble under the weight of her own lies? That part. I'm not proud of. But I won't apologize for it either. She set the house on fire. All I did was stop pretending it wasn't burning. And maybe there's something cold in that. Maybe there's a part of me that is harder now. Sharper. Less forgiving. But I earned that edge. You sleep in your car, you learn how to see through people. You live on scraps, you stop being grateful for crumbs. I didn't expose Emily to hurt her. I did it so she couldn't hurt me again. Pride? No. That's not what I feel. What I feel is peace. Not the kind you find in reconciliation or some tidy family ending. The kind you find in clarity. It's been 2 years since Emily showed up at my job. She never came back. I heard she moved again. Another state. Some new version of herself, still trying to outgrow the old one. We haven't spoken since. Not a text. Not a whisper. My parents send birthday cards now. Christmas, too. I read them. I don't respond. I don't need more apologies. And they've learned not to ask for them back. The rest of the family? They're scattered. Some still don't know the whole story. Some never wanted to. And some, the quiet few, reached out and said what needed saying, not for closure, just for honesty. I've built a good life. Nothing flashy. Just solid. Work, home, a dog that's too big for his own good, a shop I can call mine, and a kitchen table where I eat in peace. Most days, that's enough. But some nights I catch myself looking at the photo. The one my mother sent with her letter. 2 kids barefoot on the porch, holding popsicles, smiling like they didn't know how fast everything would change. I used to ask myself if I could have done anything different. Now I don't. Because I didn't pick the fight. I didn't draw the line. But I stood on it when no one else would. And maybe that makes me cold. Maybe that makes me hard. But it also makes me free. Sometimes I wonder if Emily tells the story differently. If, in some version, I really am the villain. The brother who embarrassed her, who humiliated the family, who chose revenge over forgiveness. And if I'm honest, there's a part of me that doesn't mind if she thinks that. Because whether it was revenge or justice, whether it was pride or protection, it was the truth. And the truth never needed her approval. So, no, I'm not proud of everything I did. But I'm proud I never let the lie win. And if that makes me the bad guy in her story, maybe that's just the price of being the honest one.